Why is it that you know someone isn't right for you? When the first autumn wind slipped into the alley, carrying the sweet, nutty scent of roasted chestnuts, Sue-Ell was crouched on the steps of her old apartment compound, crying. Her phone glowed in her hand, a long stream of voice messages from her best friend. She didn't need to play them to know what they said. It was always the same. Lena isn't good enough for you. You two just aren't right for each other. And before it gets worse, she had been hearing it for 3 years. So often it felt like her ears had grown calluses. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lindsay. The supermarket downstairs just closed. They didn't have the strawberry yogurt you wanted, so I got the plain one you used to like. I'll be home soon. Sue-Ell wiped her tears, locked the screen, and stared blankly at a tuft of foxtail grass, pushing up through a crack in the concrete step. She knew her friend was right. She and Lena had never been right for each other, not from the very beginning. A gust of wind sent half-withered plane tree leaves skittering across the ground. It brushed against her pant leg and slipped into the crack by her feet, making the little plant tremble. A single drop of dew clinging to its tip fell onto the back of her hand, cold enough to make her flinch. Her phone was still pressed against her palm. The warmth from the screen faded slowly, just like the expectations she had clung to for the past 3 years, cooling bit by bit until they seeped into her bones. Sue-Ell and Lena met the year they graduated from college, in the dim stairwell of a run-down rental building. She had been hauling 3 oversized suitcases up the stairs that day when her high heel got wedged into a crack. As she paged forward, it was Lena who had just moved in next door who reached out and caught her. He wasn't particularly tall. When he smiled, a faint dimple appeared on his left cheek. He was holding a half-full bag of freshly bought oranges and handed her to housewarming gift, he said with a grin. At the time, Sue-Ell had just started working at an advertising agency, pulling late nights almost every day. Whenever she came home past midnight, she would see a small light left on outside his door. Once, when she ran a fever of 102F, she knocked on his door, barely able to stand. He carried her on his back and ran 3 blocks to the hospital. He stayed with her all night in the IV room, wrapping her in his jacket while he sat there shivering, rubbing his hands together to keep warm. Back then, she thought he was wonderful. He left her a bowl of hot porridge when she worked late. He remembered she didn't eat cilantro or scallions. When she cried after being scolded by a client, he would sit beside her quietly, saying nothing profound, just peeling oranges for her, one segment at a time. Sue-Ell was an only child, raised under strict expectations. Coming in second place meant she hadn't tried hard enough. For over 20 years, she had lived under that pressure until she met someone who, no matter what she achieved, would simply smile and say, all is already amazing. Falling in love felt inevitable. During their first year together, they squeezed into a 10-square-meter rental room. There was no heating in the winter, so they huddled under the same blanket, watching old movies and sipping cheap packets of hot soy milk. Life felt so sweet it was almost fizzy. Back then, she had never once thought about the word compatibility. Love was enough. Why complicate it with rules and conditions? So when did things begin to fall apart? Maybe it was the first time she mentioned wanting to pursue part-time graduate degree, and Lena frowned. Why would a girl need that much education? You'll get married and have kids anyway. Or maybe it was when she stayed up for 3 nights straight to finish a proposal that won first prize at work. She came home, glowing with excitement, only to find him lounging on the couch, playing video games. He didn't even look up. It was just a small award. What is the big deal? Or maybe it was when she started saving diligently for a down payment on an apartment, budgeting every dollar, while he spent his entire bonus on the latest gaming console. Why not enjoy life while you can? He said. Why make everything so exhausting? That was the first time Suyao realized they were fundamentally different people. She wanted to move forward. She wanted to fight for a place in the city. She wanted their future children to attend good schools. She wanted her parents to live comfortably in their old age. But Lin Ai wanted a simple, steady life, a job that paid enough to get by, video games after work, drinks with friends. That was enough for him. The first time her best friend urged her to break up, Suyao sat in a milk tea shop, stirring the tapioca pearls at the bottom of her cup. "But he is good to me," she said softly. Her friend rolled her eyes. "Being good to you is the bare minimum, not a bonus. You two aren't even headed in the same direction. If you can't let go now, you'll regret it later." Suyao didn't believe her. She thought that as long as there was love, they could overcome anything. So she tried to change him. She set him up for professional training courses. She deleted the games from his computer. She sat beside him every evening after work, urging him to study. But within days, he dropped the classes, reinstalled the games, and they got into a fight. "Can you stop forcing me to do things I don't even like?" he snapped. "What is wrong with the way I am now?" They didn't speak for a week. In the end, Lin Ai was the one who gave in. He bought her favorite strawberry cake and waited outside her office building after work, his nose red from the cold. "I know I messed up," he said. "I allow change. Slowly, okay?" Looking at him like that, Suyao's heart softened instantly. "We have time," she thought. He allowed change eventually. But after 3 years of trying, nothing had really changed. He still blasted video game audio on speaker while she worked late. He still dipped into the home renovation fund she painstakingly saved, spending it on drinks with his friends. And whenever she tried to talk about the future, he would yell and say, "Why think so far ahead? Isn't he living in the moment enough?" Suyao had tried to break up with him 3 times. The first time was when he forgot their 3rd anniversary and didn't come home until our 10, drunk with his friends. She had already packed her suitcase and stood by the door. His eyes were red as he grabbed her hand. "I really just forgot. I'll remember next time, I promise." Then he showed her his phone, his shopping cart filled. Over the past 2 weeks, with the necklace she had mentioned, wanting for months, her hand paused midair as she tried to pull away. In the end, she set the suitcase back down. The second time was when her mother was hospitalized. She was frantic, calling him over and over more than a dozen times, but he never picked up. Later she found out he had gone to play pool with friends and had his phone on silent. Standing in the hospital corridor, she texted him let us break up. When he finally rushed over, he was carrying a thermos filled with pigeon soup, her mother's favorite. He crouched in front of her and said, "I know I've been awful. Don't be mad. Let me take care of your mom." And he did. For 2 weeks, he showed up at the hospital every day after work, helping her mother wash, feeding her meals, more attentive than Suyao herself. On the day her mother was discharged, she held Suyao hand and said, "I know I may not be ambitious, but he is kind at heart. He truly cares about you." The words Suyao had been about to say we read and slipped back down her throat. The 3rd time was just last month. She had been offered a director position at a branch office in a neighboring city, with her salary doubled. She told him the news, glowing with excitement, and asked if he would go with her. He didn't even hesitate. "We got a good thing here. My friends are all here. I don't want to start over somewhere unfamiliar." That night, she lay awake for hours. Just before dawn, she sent the breakup message, packed her things, and moved in with her best friend. But less than a week later, he showed up. He had lost weight. His face wasn't shaven. In his hands were the roasted chestnuts she loved, still warm, and the lip balm she always used. "Without you at home, I can't sleep," he said. "I sold my gaming account. I signed up for classes, Please don't leave. I'll listen to you from now on. Suao looked at the warm chestnuts in his hands. Suddenly, she was back in that winter 3 years ago. Him standing outside her office, hands red from the cold, holding a cup of hot soy milk for her. Her tears fell before she could stop them. She knew he wouldn't change. She knew that even if she went back, things would slip back into the same pattern. She knew they weren't right for each other, and yet she couldn't harden her heart. She couldn't take that final step away. The heat from the paper bag seeped through the thin fabric of her clothes, warming her palm. The scent of freshly roasted chestnuts mixed with the crispness of autumn air, exactly like the sweetness of that soy milk from years ago. Her fingers dug into the edge of the bag, leaving faint white marks in the craft paper. Her throat felt clogged, like it was stuffed with soaked cotton, heavy, aching, impossible to clear. Her best friend jabbed a finger against her forehead in frustration. Suao, are you stupid? What he asked then doesn't mean anything. We already wasted 3 years on him, your best years. How much longer are you planning to waste? She knew she was being foolish, but she couldn't let go. She couldn't let go of the hot bowls of porridge in winter. She couldn't let go of the warmth of him sitting by her bedside when she was sick. She couldn't let go of the way his eyes reddened every time he apologized after a fight. She couldn't let go of the countless small, tender memories they had built together all the 3 years. Later, Suao came across a term in a book sunk cost, the idea that was time, money, or emotion has been invested and cannot be recovered. People struggle to walk away. That is when she understood. What she couldn't let go of wasn't just linear. It was everything she had poured into those 3 years without holding back. It was the youth she could never reclaim. It was all the hopes she once had for the future. She remembered when they had just started dating, wandering through a home goods store together. She pointed at a pink chandelier and said, "One day, we should have this in our home." He had smiled, ruffled her hair, and said, "Sure, whatever you want." For that future, she spent 3 years buying no clothes over 500 yuan. She brought lunch to work every day, avoided going out with friends, saved every penny she could. The number in her bank account crept upward, little by little. The link to that pink chandelier had been sitting in her favorites for 3 years. If they broke up now, wouldn't all of that be wasted? Every time she thought about it, she wavered. It was like going to a movie. You buy the ticket, sit down, and realize it as terrible. But most people don't leave. The money is already spent. Walking out feels like losing even more. Her 3 years of youth, those days of saving, those dreams of the future, that was her movie ticket. She knew it was a bad film, but she stayed, stubbornly hoping maybe, just maybe, there would be a twist. Once, during a company retreat to a temple, she drew a fortune stick. The fortune teller studied her for a long moment and said, "You cling too tightly. That is why you're stuck where you are." She hadn't understood then. Now she did. It was attachment. She kept thinking, just a little longer, just a little more effort. Maybe he'll change. Maybe we'll have a good ending. But she had forgotten something simple. People don't change unless they want to. Last winter, she went with Lin Yi to one of his class reunions. Around the table, his classmates talked about promotions, raises, projects, investments. Lin Yi sat in the corner, scrolling through his phone, unable to join the conversation. On the way home, she said gently, "You should try harder. Otherwise, the gap between you and your friends will only grow." He snapped, "What do you mean I am not trying? I work hard every day. I earn enough to live on. Why do you always compare me to others? Do you look down on me because I am not successful?" They fought fiercely that night so loudly the neighbors knocked on the door to intervene. She cried on the bed. He sat in the living room, smoking one cigarette after another until the entire pack was gone. Around dawn, he pushed open her door. He held a warm towel and gently wiped her face. I know I am not good enough, he said quietly. I will make you suffer. If you really want to leave, I won't stop you. Her heart skipped. She thought she would feel relieved, finally free. But instead, she felt panic. If they really broke up, who would carry her to the hospital when she had a fever? Who would remember she didn't eat cilantro? Who would leave a light on for her when she came home late? She had grown used to having someone like him by her side. Even if he lacked ambition, even if they weren't right for each other, as long as he was there, she felt like she had something to lean on. What people feel most is not painted as habit. You get used to someone squeezing toothpaste onto your brush every morning. You get used to someone waiting for you to come home at night. You get used to being comforted when you're upset. You get used to thinking of them first whenever something happens. And even if that person has 1,000 flaws, once you've grown used to their presence, tearing that habit away feels like ripping a piece of flesh from your body raw, immediate, unbearable. Sue had tried meeting new people. Last year, a new colleague joined her company, a driven, thoughtful guy. He liked books, liked planning for the future, just like she did. He was clearly interested in her and asked her out to dinner a few times. But every time they sat across from each other, she couldn't stop comparing him to Lin Shi. This guy was polite, he put out her chair for her, but he didn't know she didn't eat cilantro. Once, at a hot pot restaurant, he piled a generous helping of it into her bowl. He bought her expensive perfume but didn't know she was allergic to floral scents. After wearing it once, she broke out in a rash across her face. He could talk to her about industry trends, future plans, everything aligned on paper. And yet, something was missing. What was it? Maybe it was that quiet understanding that didn't need words. Maybe it was the familiarity built over 3 years, piece by piece. With Lin Shi, she didn't have to pretend. She didn't have to search for conversation. Even if they sat on the couch doing separate things, it felt natural, comfortable. With someone new, she had to stay aware of how she looked, keep conversations going, respond to polite concern. It was exhausting. She knew, rationally, that this kind of ease could be built with someone else over time. But she was tired. Too tired to start over. Too tired to explain her likes and dislikes from scratch. Too tired to spend years again, slowly learning how to fit into someone else's life. It was like a game you've played for 3 years, your inventory finally full, your gear painstakingly collected. If someone asked you to delete your account and start from zero, you'd hesitate. Of course you would. When Sue was little, she learned to ride a bicycle, the hard way, falling again and again before she finally got it right. After that, she never wanted to switch bikes. Even when she grew taller and the old bike no longer fit, she clung to it. A new one felt unfamiliar, unstable, like she might fall all over again. She was the same in love. Being with Lin, it brought plenty of happiness, but it was predictable happiness. She knew what would make him upset. She knew how he would apologize after a fight. She knew how to navigate their conflicts. But if she left him and started over with someone new, would that person treat her well? Would she find someone more compatible? Would the future be better or worse? She didn't know, and that uncertainty frightened her more than anything. Around her, she had seen too many examples. Friends who broke up only to end up with partners who were worse. Others still single in their 30s, pressured daily by their families to marry. Every time she heard their complaints, a thought crept in. What if I never meet someone who treats me as well as Lin Shi does? Even if I do, what if he has other problems? What if he is abusive? What if he cheats? Compared to that uncertainty, staying felt safer. At least Lin Shi wouldn't hurt her. At least his feelings were real. Why gamble on an unknown future when she could hold on to something flawed, but familiar? Once, she talked to her mother about it. Her mother said, "I've lived long enough to know there is no such thing as two people who are perfectly compatible. Everyone just makes do. Lin Yi may not be ambitious, but he is a decent person, and he truly cares about you. If you really can't let go, then just make a life with him. Don't overthink it. Even her mother said that, and that made her waver even more. After all, who is perfect? Everyone has flaws. What if the next person is worse? And yet, deep down, she knew something else. The people who make do always carry regrets. There was a woman in her office, Sister Anne, who had been married for 20 years. She and her husband were fundamentally incompatible. They argued constantly but never divorced. "We're too old to start over," Sham would say. "What else could I find at this age?" But Sura had seen her wiping away tears in the office, had seen her staring blankly at photos of happy families. She knew Sham regretted it, and Sura didn't want to become her. But she didn't have the courage to step away, either. She felt like she was standing at a crossroads. On the left was a road she had walked for 3 years uneven, full of potholes, but familiar. She knew where every dip was. She knew how to walk it without falling too hard. On the right was an unknown path, wide, smooth, almost inviting, but she didn't know what lay ahead. Traps, dangers, or something better. She had stood at that intersection for 3 years, unable to take a single step to the right. What finally made Sulel decide happened just last month. That evening, when she came home from work, she saw Lin sitting on the couch, a suitcase rested beside him. "My mom fell," he said. "I need to go back home to take care of her. I might not come back." For a moment, Sulel just stared at him, stunned. Then, "What about me? What about our future?" He scratched his head. "I don't know. Why don't you come back with me? My hometown as house is big. Life is easier there. You wouldn't have to work so hard like you do here." She looked at him and suddenly, he felt like a stranger. He had never asked if she wanted to go. He had never considered her career. He hadn't even discussed it with her before making the decision. In his vision of the future, her needs had never been the priority. He always chose whatever made his life easier. As he spoke, the faint smile she knew so well still lingered at the corner of his lips. That small dimple appearing on his left cheek just like the day he handed her oranges in that dim stairwell 3 years ago. But as she looked at this face she had known for so long, something inside her snapped quietly, but unmistakably. A crack, and through that crack, all the warmth she had carefully gathered over 3 years began to leak away, leaving behind a cold ache in her chest. That night, as Lin packed his things, Suai sat on the edge of the bed and replayed everything from beginning to end. She thought about the first time she tried to break up, how he promised to change, and how 3 years later, nothing had. She thought about the renovation fund she had saved so carefully, and how he had quietly taken 20,000 to pay his brother's wedding expenses, without even telling her. She thought about the way his eyes always avoided hers. Whenever she talked about the future, she thought about what her best friend had said. "You will already give him 3 years, your best years. How much longer are you going to waste?" And suddenly, she felt tired. Not just tired but exhausted. For years, she had been like a parent, cleaning up after him, pushing him forward, urging him to grow, to try harder, to think about the future. She had believed that if she just tried a little more, she could put him onto the same path as her. But now she finally understood. You can't wake someone who is pretending to sleep, and you can't pull forward someone who has no intention of moving. On the day he left, she went to the train station to see him off. Just like before, he bought her a bag of hot roasted chestnuts. "If I am not around, take care of yourself," he said. "Eat on time. Don't overwork." She took the chestnuts and nodded, seeing nothing. As the train began to move, she watched him lean against the window, waving. Her tears finally fell. But this time, she didn't run after the train. She didn't text him, "Don't go." She simply stood there, quietly, until the train disappeared from sight. Only then did she turn and walk away. The wind blew strands of hair across her face. Her tears fell onto the paper bag in her hands, leaving small, dark stains. For a split second, she almost stepped forward, her toes brushing the edge of the platform. But then she remembered the withdrawal slip from the renovation fund she had found the night before. She remembered the casual certainty in his voice when he said, "I am going back home," and she put her foot back. As she walked out of the station, a cool autumn breeze swept past her, and suddenly she felt light. The weight she had carried for 3 years had finally lifted. She went home and packed up everything Lena had left behind, donating it all to charity. She deleted the link to that pink chandelier she had kept in her favorites for 3 years. She withdrew the money she had been saving for their future home and signed up for an oil painting class she had always wanted to take. She even bought herself the necklace she had been longing for. When her best friend heard the news, she booked a restaurant to celebrate. Looking at Suel's glowing face, she laughed. "You should have done this a long time ago. Look at you now, you're raised driving." Suel took a sip of her fruit tea and smiled, nodding. Now she finally understood. All that reluctance, that attachment, that fear of the unknown, they had been nothing more than chains she had placed on herself. You think you can't live without someone, but once you leave, you realize the sky doesn't fall. The ground doesn't collapse. If anything, you start living better. That night, lying in bed, she didn't have to listen to the noise of his video games. She didn't have to think about pushing him to attend classes the next day. She didn't have to argue about the future. She slept deeply, peacefully for the first time in a long while. Later, she passed by the roasted chestnut shop they used to visit together. The owner saw her and smiled. "Hey, haven't seen you and your boyfriend in a while." She paused for a second, then smiled back. "We broke up." "Oh," the owner said, scooping a generous portion into a bag. "That's all right. Come by on your own, I'll give you extra sugar." She took the chestnuts, peeled one open, and popped it into her mouth. Sweet, just like before. But now she understood. What she loved was the taste of roasted chestnuts, not the fact that he had bought them. She used to think sweetness only came from him. Now she knew what she chose for herself could be just as sweet. The warmth of the chestnuts spread gently across her tongue. Not as hot as when he used to peel them and feed her, but warm enough to settle softly in her throat, leaving her as slightly misty. She walked forward, chewing slowly, as the wind lifted the hem of her coat. From a nearby milk tea shop drifted the sugary scent of tapioca pearls. Suddenly, she remembered herself from 3 years ago sitting there, stirring pearls in silence while her friend urged her to leave. No, she finally understood. Pearls taste sweetest when you pick them out and chew them yourself. And life feels right only when it is a choice you make on your own. So why is it that we know something isn't right, yet still can't walk away? Because we can't let go of what we've already given. Because we've grown used to someone else's presence. Because we're afraid of what comes next. But here is the truth. Sunk cost isn't a reason to stay. Shoes that don't fit will only draw blood the longer you wear them. Instead of clinging to fading sweetness from the past, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is turn around and leave. Yes, it will hurt, but only for a while. And once you make it through that hardest stretch, you'll realize the road ahead is wider than you imagined, and far sweeter, too. No one is truly irreplaceable. We don't stay because we can't leave. We stay because we can't bear to let go. But people who aren't right for you will eventually drift apart anyway. Better to feel the pain sooner than later. The longer you hold on, the deeper the wound. May we all have the courage to cut our losses in time, and the confidence to begin again. Don't let a piece of expired sweetness keep you from the life you deserve.